Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of What the Fintech, a podcast for fintech professionals who want to shape the future of our industry with innovation and inclusion. I'm your host, Nicole Casperson, and today I'm sitting down with Steve Larsen, a certified financial planner, advisor, and co-founder of PlannerDAO, a decentralized community of financial professionals promoting economic freedom, universal fiduciary standards, and access to financial services for all. Steve is speaking my language, and I'm so excited to dive into all things decentralized finance with him. Steve, welcome to What the Fintech. As a journalist who has covered the finance sector over the last 5 years, I've had the opportunity to interview and engage with some of the best minds in the space. Leaving big bank earnings reports to the boring traditional media firms, I'll focus on the tech-savvy apps, digital investing platforms, challenger banks, and payment giants to drive relevant content that looks forward to disruption instead of fearing it. I'm Nicole Casperson, fintech journalist, and this is What the Fintech.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I've enjoyed your podcast and really excited to be on here.
Yay. Okay, awesome. We got a listener. That's great. So Steve, tell me about where you are working from today and just overall, how are you doing?
I appreciate that. So I am in Spokane, Washington. I'm a native of the Pacific Northwest, been here most of my life. And it's a place where in July and August, you wonder why the whole world doesn't live here. And then a day like yesterday, where we have 4 inches of snow, you wonder why anybody lives here. So yesterday was shoveling, and then today is pretending my back doesn't hurt. So it's going pretty well. It's going pretty well.
Oh man. I mean, no, I love it. I mean, anyone actually watching this, I love your kind of like rustic background. It is suitable to the vibe there. But awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I do love as we're still doing these like remote recordings and I get to see into people's homes. It's kind of like or their workplaces, it's like always fun to ask. The other way I love to open these conversations is learning a little bit more about you and your values. I do truly believe that establishes the framework of the success of the companies and the work that you do. So Steve, what are some of your core values and how do you translate them into the work that you do today with PlannerDAO?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think at the top of the list has to be personal freedom. I'm a big believer that people should be able to do whatever they want, as long as it doesn't interfere with somebody else's rights. And I know that's kind of a well-worn political statement, but it's true. It's true. The more freedom people have to do what they want and live the life they're after, the more I will do to support it. And I've always felt that way, and I think it clarifies a lot of things. And the other one is I think is a good companion to that, which is you still need purpose. And people need to find a purpose that they believe in and something to kind of ground their actions and their beliefs around. And anything I can do to help people find that purpose. So as a financial planner, it was something that came up often. It is, okay, what are we using this money for? What are we saving money for? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to tell your boss to pound sand, or is there kind of a higher cause here, or what are you after? And so it's very obvious to see, somebody like myself who believes in these things when crypto comes along is just a very obvious fit. It just pulled me right into it. It's like, okay, here's a chance to really, really open up freedom for so many people. And it'll be so easy. It'd be so much easier to really, maybe find your purpose, but more explore your purpose, more go figure it out, more go see what other people are doing, coordinate with like-minded people. So that's really at the core of what I do. And so what I'm doing in crypto has been a natural fit for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, was there anything that kind of throughout just like your upbringing or life that kind of inspired that, right? It inspired your passion, right? Or almost like fueled that to want to, enable a world, if you will, or leverage technology to have more people have that access to just being their full free selves. I mean, that is such an awesome thing to like kind of have as your North Star.
Yeah, it really is. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. Most everybody did their own thing, and they ate what they killed, and they set their own schedule, and that's what I looked at. From parents to aunts and uncles to most everybody growing up. So the thought of working for somebody never really crossed my mind. Of course, I had to do it, growing up and when I first graduated college and all that. But so it kind of started on the work front, and then that probably, as far as the personal freedom, probably just straight from a general disrespect for authority, unfortunately, is where most of that comes from. I'm one of those troublemakers. I've managed to get it under control over the years, but So that's where a lot of that comes from. As far as where technology comes to play, um, I was in a so this is going. So I graduated college with a degree in information systems, and I also graduated without a cell phone. So there's a pretty small window of those of us who didn't have a cell phone until after they graduated college. I didn't have one at all. I think I only had a couple of friends that did, but also was preparing myself, for where clearly the future was going. Now, unfortunately, that was, about the time the tech bubble burst. So I ended up without a ton of job options, but, it was very clear early on to see how revolutionary it's going to be and how much more efficient things could get. So, and also we'll get into this later, but it was picking my major in a time when tech was roaring and they were just handing out jobs sight unseen, for $50,000 at the airport, basically, from the class
Wow.
that graduated before me, and then going to my class where I sent out 100 resumes and got one interview, and it
Yeah.
was just a big change, and that's a lot of what I'm hoping to change with what we're doing here.
And I'm so excited to dive more into the nuances and all the things you're working on at PlannerDAO. But first, I do want to address a little bit about why we are here and why we're talking about this right now. So let's talk a little bit about the article you wrote for Advisor Perspectives, where you dive into why decentralized autonomous organizations, if you didn't know, those are the DAOs that we're speaking of, are quickly captivating the crypto community. Today's hype is largely happening because of the Constitution DAO. They failed their bid for an original copy of the U.S. Constitution, which is just like such a crazy thing in and of itself. But it still put that national spotlight on the DAO movement. So talk to us about DAOs and why they're gaining so much popularity for reimagining the future of models and hierarchies.
Yeah, Constitution Day was really interesting, and and I'm in this stuff every day, and I was pretty late to the party to discover that one too, and it's fun to see because we'll talk about this more, but so much of DAOs is just taking people who are already online and organizing people who are already in the same room. And what was fun about Constitution DAO is that it brought so many new people in who didn't know what a DAO was, didn't know how easy it was to coordinate their capital, to contribute to something bigger. So it was really exciting. So why DAOs are really gaining steam now is that it really is as simple as empowerment. Those who have not felt like they had control, like they've been left behind by the system, whatever version they might have, they now have a way to get involved and carve out their own level, method, system of involvement where they haven't in the past. It's really an opportunity to define your own role, whether it be for profit, nonprofit, whatever. You're not necessarily responding to a job description and saying, hey, I can fit into this box. You're saying, hey, here's the box. Who can fit the tasks into it? And I can get them done. So it's this whole reversal of between, equity and labor that's happening now in DAOs, which is really fascinating. So you take Constitution DAO and they're able to say, if anybody wants to put a slice of their, they don't hire for an administrative assistant. They say, hey, we need these tasks done. Who can do them? And you'll be rewarded in tokens for your trouble. We can't divide up the Constitution, right? But we can have tokens that represent it, and we can do that. And so that really is a pretty good analogy for what's going on out there, which is once things are tokenized, you can create a whole new menu of incentive structures that were never possible before. So it's been really exciting. And I think a lot of people who are getting on board with DAOs, back to that, my comment of them being left behind. It could have been by the economy, could have been by our political class, it could have been by people in their past that didn't believe in them. It could be any number of things. It could be by an industry they never felt connected to, and they now have the tools, and not even to fight back, just to find their place. I think might be a better way to put it.
Yeah, no, I mean and I think getting away from just like the binary view of this or that. That's something that my first podcast guest, Lule Demissi of eToro US, she I think did a great job of explaining that, which is we in fintech and just in these industries in general, we have to get away from like it's either this or that. It's this and that, right? Like why not have an option where things are decentralized? Why not have an option where folks that didn't feel connected to the maybe more traditional organizational structures or whatever it is or system of how to do it, or not even connected, but were frankly maybe not acknowledged by it, have a place to be. Like, what's so wrong with that? Why is that such a huge thing? Like, why can't we create these things, especially when we have the technology to do it? So that's why we're here. That's what the FinTech is about. So we love it. I want to learn more about how the Troublemaker went from being the troublemaker with no, so with not wanting to have a sense of authority, if you will, above him, to founding your own DAO with PlannerDAO. It has more than doubled its membership in the past 2 months. Totally, with which makes a lot of sense and understandably, and it is on track to hit more than 1,000 members in Q1 of 2022. Talk to us about what PlannerDAO really does and just like your future roadmap for growth.
Yeah, and that's a great transition because a lot of the times we have discussions and it comes out as, why is this company doing this? We need to
Yeah.
get rid of this. And, and then eventually it does, our core values do come back and it's like, okay, no, we just need to create the proper alternative. And if they have business, great. If they don't have business, great. It's more about putting our options out there as a community as opposed to saying, hey, let's eliminate everybody else. So I like that you brought that into focus because, as competitive people and who want it so bad, sometimes it's easy to lose track of that hey, oh yeah, wait a minute, they can do what they want, we're just building what we want for we want, and everything can coexist. So that's exactly right. So why the DAO is growing so much is because we do have one of those industries where people feel fairly the general financial advisor doesn't feel terribly connected to the industry. It's small circles that run our large institutions, that run our associations, that appear in the media. It's a very small circle of people, and it's fine. It's just it doesn't motivate or inspire anybody to jump into any of these and help out or make a change or have an impact. And so everybody stays pretty siloed as an advisor, particularly last couple of years with no conferences. That used to be most people's only connection to the industry. So without conferences, people are particularly siloed. And this gives them an opportunity to break out of that and really join the community again. So one way we're leading that charge is with a certification. It's the Certified Digital Asset Advisor, and we've had about 150 people go through. We're going to have another 1,000 plus this year become certified to advise on digital assets. And the real distinction there is we're not here to provide the general public with advice. We're here to equip fiduciaries to do it. So we want to give people who are professional providers of advice the tools to go do it the proper way and show them how to do it in the way that's most efficient for the client with the lowest fees and the best advice and the least middlemen and the most secure way possible. And so we're training the army of planners who are going to do that. And incidentally, it's not just going to be financial advisors. There's going to need to be lawyers, accountants, mortgage brokers, journalists. There's going to need to be everybody who's going to think, yeah, I have a responsibility to deliver this advice in the right way. And so we're here to educate everybody, not just financial advisors. Anybody who wants to deliver that advice on a really high level is what we're building. And we're building in a super open and transparent way where everybody can see what's going on all the time. And that's why we're gaining so much traction right now.
How does one get in on this? Like, how do I become a part of PlannerDAO?
Great question. So that's something most DAOs wrestle with, and we actually just had a meetup this week in Austin, just earlier this week, and it was one of those moments that you hear about with crypto people. Like, I walk into a restaurant and there's 7 people who I've just seen on Zoom, who I basically picture as NFTs in my mind, and they're just all there live, and I was just so overwhelmed. I was like, what do we do? Do we shake hands? Like, how do we do this? It's been so long. So it was really funny. But one of the main things we tackled is what makes a member of our DAO. If you sign up for our community site, if you buy a token, if you join a working group, what makes a member of a DAO? And a lot of DAOs are struggling with that. Is it somebody who simply buys tokens? Well, that's not a very good member. You want people who contribute to whatever your cause is. And so for us, it really focuses around people who want to be a certified digital asset advisor or work towards that or support the community in a significant way, which is what we decided and really came down on as our definition. So we want everybody to come in and check us out, see what we're doing, see if there's something that's interesting, an area, a project, a group you can join and be part of. There's unlimited spots like that for everybody. As far as the governance structure, that'll be for people who take the next step and actually get their certified digital asset advisor accreditation, because that signals the commitment to, hey, I will take the harder path here to do the right thing for people, and it'll be a pretty good long-term kind of marker for us there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think when it comes to just like the decentralized finance and even just Web3 and NFTs and all of these, wildly talked about things that are going on in the digital asset space, I went to a panel of discussion or event in real life, actually, in the financial district last week. And, one of the things that was largely talked about is just the way that, the industry, like us in the industry, we haven't done maybe the best job at communicating really the true benefits of what a DAO does, or what, Web3 is, or what crypto does, right, to open up access to more people to have more financial services, or just more networking, or more, even just digital communities. And so, and educating the professionals in the industry who are constantly talking to the consumer, to the end client or the investor, right? That is like such a huge way to tackle that. So really, kudos to what you're doing here, because that's what even just like my podcast is largely about too, is like, how do we influence the professional community and say, hey, like, we have the responsibility here to get the masses to understand what we're doing and how we're trying to actually build something good. So yeah, that communication is actually like the key. It's like the key that we're all trying to figure out.
Yeah, it is, right? And it's evolving. We're trying to figure out what it is. And you bring up a good point, because like historically, it hasn't been there. So I've just been like, somebody else will do it. I'll take care of my clients and hide out over here, and they can run around and have dinners and conferences and talk about doing stuff, and I'm good. But that's not the answer either. It's not the answer either, is to not try and not get involved. But one of the earliest conversations we had, and we're just brainstorming use cases, and maybe the second thing I wrote an outline for is how we deliver pro bono financial advice more efficiently and actually deliver it to the people who need it. So I've signed up for 2 or 3 kind of pro bono financial planning programs for CFPs, for certified financial planners, over the years. And I've never been sent a client to work with. And there was an intro email that never really went anywhere. There was we'll get you in the system. And it's not a matter of intent. All these organizations are trying their best. They're doing their best, but they're rotating people through. They're not organized enough. And this is one of those areas where our DAO and, crypto economics and the tokenomics we build can have a giant impact. And we've brainstormed all kinds of ideas now about how we can use this new incentive structure to deliver advice to people who need it most. And most everybody who I talk to is interested in this project. We're like, yes, can I actually sign up for something and do it quickly and not have to respond to 19 emails and then not get to do anything? Like, how do I do this? And so we're really excited to get that going. But that's another example of when you remove a bunch of the layers who aren't even who are well intentioned, right? They just don't have the mechanisms to get it done, and we can build it ourselves because we know the steps. We know who needs it. We know what they need. We know at what point in their lives they're needed at, because some planners are new. Some have been going for 40 years. We've talked with thousands of clients. Like, we know what needs to happen. We've just never been coordinated because we always assumed somebody else was doing it. Well, it's not enough. It's not happening enough. And so that's something we'll have a specific working group for in our DAO to see how efficient we can make that. And I think it's going to be maybe the best thing to come out of this DAO long term.
Yes. And I want to get into a little bit more of just like the specifics and nuances of it. So I'm going to use this Mark Cuban tweet and quote it to do that. So Mark Cuban did tweet that and I quote, "The future of corporations could be very different as DAOs take on legacy businesses." He even called DAOs the ultimate combination of capitalism and progressivism, which is like crazy. But it's a place where entrepreneurs that enable DAOs can make money, and if the community excels at governance, everyone can share in the upside. So will you help us kind of dissect what Mark Cuban is getting at here and just how that impacts the space? especially I guess the fintech space, right?
Yeah, for sure. So Mark Cuban absolutely loves his buzzwords, so it takes some time to dissect them fairly often. But I think what he's getting at here is that workers are going to own more of their own labor, and they're going to own the product that they produce, and they're going to have an opportunity to participate in a way that they haven't before. So why DAOs are so neat isn't that, hey, corporations are broken and everybody hates management and come join this big party where we all do a little bit of work and get paid a ton. Like, you know, a little bit of that's going on, and good for the people that have found those gigs. But in general, that's not what it's about. It's about the fact that you are part of the process of developing the product. You are part of delivering the service. You are a key cog in that wheel, and you are able to be there from the beginning and feel some ownership, and not just feel ownership, right? Because I've read enough management books. How do you make your employees act like owners? It
Hmm.
starts with not giving them ownership, but then saying these things to them. It's like, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
I don't know if I'm in the business of like tricking people anymore,
Yeah,
or at all.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Goodness.
yeah, I don't think so. We do things anymore, but thanks. It, but now you're compensated with a token, and I get that not all tokens are going to be worth something, and that a lot of people are still skeptical on the concept, but that's where it all ties back to what cryptocurrency is. It's an economic incentive system we did not have before, that we now have. It's something that can be practically implemented in minutes, not a theoretical thing that can never be done, which is why it's really exciting. So it's not, I value you like an owner. It's, here's some tokens. You now have, 0.5% ownership if you get this done. And the community is the big driver of whether or not the person gets it done. So when somebody like Mark Cuban is saying, hey, DAOs are going to take over, and we're wondering why, it's, well, if you look at it from the worker's perspective, if you have some ownership of your work, you have more flexibility, you have more opportunity to create your own career path. You're not on some predefined, hey, here's how you go from associate to junior partner to
Hmm.
partner to, to burning out to divorce, right? Like the usual path.
To pain and suffering.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
pain and suffering, and not being happy, and you can create your own career path that intersects with your life, and you can get immediate feedback on it. You don't have to wait for your year-end review to learn if you've done a good job or not. Like, hey, if somebody pays you and gives you another job, you're doing a good job. Keep up the good work. So if you look at it from the worker's perspective, why wouldn't they choose that? So the market for labor is going to get much more competitive, because who wouldn't rather be in that world? So as those roles expand and actually start paying bills in a significant way, which they will, it'll take time, but it will, they're going to be a lot more competitive. So they're not so much going to tear down corporations. They're going to they're going to be a huge competitive pressure for corporations to evolve and provide some of those things.
Oh, thank goodness something had
Yeah,
to happen, right?
about time,
I
right?
mean, it's about time. I mean, and yeah, exactly. So you're getting at the way that DAOs can help transform those business structures that actually retain employees, and having that level of ownership that isn't just like you said. Oh my gosh, like how many times have we all been duped, right, by like a corporate America structure where we're like told like, yeah, you have autonomy and you have all this ownership and we love you, yes, especially when you first start, and then like fast forward like 6 months in the job or even less or whatever, and you're like, and all of a sudden I have no ownership of anything and I'm being told what to do all the time, and what just happened, huh? Like I got tricked, right? And like, why the hell are we doing that? So yeah, no, it's just so good. And I love that you mentioned kind of, it's not like trying to dismantle like one system, it's just creating another, because it's
Yeah.
something I just had a conversation with someone else about that, right? Like it gets a little tiring trying to to fix something that's so broken. So
Hmm.
instead, what are we creating something new, right? And that's what's even more exciting about this, right? Is like we're creating something entirely new that maybe will make the people that are running the thing that's so broken think twice. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see. We've been trying to do that for a while. So
Yeah. Well,
anyway, but wanting to learn a little bit more about how it is the Great Resignation time, right? So are there any other ways that DAOs can really actually help, retain employees, even outside of just like that ownership, or is that kind of like the main bread and butter?
no, I think there's a lot of ways. So taking on corporations is good, but I also think that workers will feel a lot more satisfaction. And one of the keys here is the constant evolution of incentive structures. So whereas employees properly managed can be instantly adaptable. So the supply of what you're creating can adapt in a second to what's going on. The incentive structures in most corporations cannot. Most businesses can't change, salary comp bonuses, give out a percentage of the revenue, for a certain project instantly. They have to change slowly over time while the creativity is very dynamic. And so that's what can really change in DAOs, which is the incentive structure can change block by block. It can change every 12 seconds if it needs to, based on what's going on, to bring in supply and demand for labor based on what's happening. So I think that's a big thing. And with that comes the ability to jump between jobs, and you can do it without betrayal, right? So if you're a really good writer, you can go find a great project for this DAO, and then you can go write a great project for the next DAO, even on the same thing and the same topic. And you're not doing it in a dishonest way for the first DAO, because you're bringing your expertise to deliver what they need, and they're not in charge of you. So think of it kind of like continual free agency. You're just constantly a free agent, and you can re-up wherever you want. And again, that's going to be something that's very appealing to workers, and corporations going to have to adjust if they want to compete with that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly legacy work models are rightfully being questioned. And with DAOs gaining so much popularity during this worker revolution, the Great Resignation, are we looking at this perfect storm that could accelerate the formation of DAOs in the professional world? I mean, I, for one, hope that this isn't just a fad. I don't think it is at all, but you never know with how things can change and so fast. So how do we kind of ensure that that's not the case?
Sadly, that starts with regulation, right? But that's a topic for another podcast, where we got to make sure this thing keeps moving. But short of that, the main advantage that DAOs have is that they create communities. So added to my list of business books that are filed away that I've read way too many of is How to Build a Culture, How to Build a Winning Culture, Culture
Mhm.
This, Culture That. DAOs don't have to build cultures. It's there. You show up for the culture. People rally around a culture. Like, there's
Awesome.
already culture floating around, and these people are like, hey, let's grab it and call it this. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. Not like, it's not like at work where it's like mandatory fun. Hey, mandatory fun time, everybody show up, Hawaiian shirt day, right? We're going to create a culture.
Oh man.
Because nobody wants to do that. So there'll be a constant disadvantage. And these corporations, it's not just the culture. Larger corporations are full of non-productive employees. And it's just a fact. When you get that much money and that much revenue, and you have that much scale and that big of a moat around your business, then you can afford to have non-productive employees. It's cheaper to just give them their paycheck, instead of restructure and rock the boat or be aggressive or, be accused of cutting jobs or whatever it might be. So in these cultures of companies where there's so many and I don't mean to insult what everybody's doing by any means. We just, they're not as efficient is the overall point here. A lot of these employees don't feel like they were part of the process. They don't feel like they built the product. They don't feel like they're influential or a necessary cog in the machine. They don't feel that purpose connected to it. Whereas you go into a DAO, and if anybody's doing anything, you can convince yourself pretty quick this DAO can't survive without you. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. Like, hey, there's nobody who will care as much as I do about my little corner. There's nobody who believes as much as I do. And those people are right. There isn't. So being in there is just this huge advantage that's going to be really hard to replicate. So, I wanted to transition to the end of your question there over to professional DAOs. So why we're unique is that we are combining online and offline structures in a way that I don't see anybody else doing right now. And if there's anybody else doing, I would love to join a support group. So please contact me. That would be fantastic. But so a lot of the existing DAOs are people who are already in crypto and already online. And again, it's like, hey, let's all meet in this Discord and start talking. And then they have a DAO. And it's still really cool. It's really cool. But what we're doing is trying to take people offline. We're trying to take a very analog community and not just bring them digital, bring them one step further into crypto. So it's really challenging. And we have lots of real world things we can't ignore, like regulations and software and operational structures we built in, and all these things that to coordinate these real world assets with these crypto assets, it's difficult. It's hard, and it'll take time. But it influences a lot of our choices, a lot of our decisions, a lot of how we decide to operate things as a community. But I think it's an example an area that is ripe for disruption. I think professional services are, because eventually they do end up in a small circle of people at some point. And even if DAOs end up with a leadership of a small circle of people, well, everything's still transparent, and things are still voted on by the membership in a very real way. And there's always projects that you're asking for help on that people can get compensated for. And I won't pretend like DAOs won't kind of float into leaders and workers, and it won't be that different. But the transparency and the governance is what will change. And professional services are begging for this, because this was the original vision for CFPs, for CPAs, for attorneys with the Bar Association, for the American Medical Association, for anything, and lots of professions I don't know anything about. This was the original vision, and it was probably awesome for a few years. And then eventually, the power floated to the top, and they decided to use it for their own benefit, and everybody just kind of checked out and said, "Oh, all right, I pay you $500 a year instead of $400. All right, whatever. Just here's your check, go away." And so I think we have a chance to reverse that trend, where you demand to know where your money's going. You demand to know what value you're getting, and you demand to know, is this really how other people in my profession feel, or are we all just lethargic, or all just checked out? And
Mhm.
DAOs are going to eliminate that. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and just kind of like removing that, like just all the stigmas around like your like fellow employees. It should feel like a community, right? Like you shouldn't, like you said earlier, right? We shouldn't just be operating in our silos, especially in the digital world we actually live in this remote world we live in. It actually can be even easier to do that. Like I know that's why I got so involved in like even just like the Twitter community and FinTwit, was because I started my my last few jobs remote. So I was trying to find that community of like-minded people. And so, why not bring that same sense to your peers and your coworkers, in your job? Because when more employees are empowered, right, to have more knowledge, to understand where, the money's coming from, or all of the things that you just talked about, then exactly that creates just that more like equal and playing field, right? And there's no reason why we employees shouldn't also have like all of the access and freedoms to things, and it shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm so scared to like have knowledge of what's going on in my company because I don't want to get fired, or I don't want to rock the boat, or whatever, right? Like all of the nonsense that we've been like fed, right,
Yeah.
by like traditional work structures, which is like, you're lucky to be here, so don't ask any questions.
Hmm.
Enjoy your 3% raise every once a year and your
Yeah.
1 year
Yeah.
review, where I tell you that you're doing pretty good, but you could improve on one thing that's very minor. And here's your 3% raise. See you next year. Like,
That
exactly. Why can't we just like make something better that actually makes people want to stay in their certain roles? Because yeah, all the fluctuation, right? That leads to like not as organized and good structures that we're seeing, right?
that's exactly right. So let me give you an example of what we're doing. It's not just enough to create them. People have to be educated about it and use it in a responsible way. So I teach adjunct at Gonzaga University, and I teach a intro to financial planning and intro to cryptocurrency class. And it
Oh
was the
wow,
first
that's
intro to
awesome.
crypto class I've taught. It's really fun. I was like, how is this going to work? Like,
That is
first of
cool.
all, I'm gonna learn something, because I don't yeah, because it's crazy teaching 20-year olds. Um, but one exercise I had them do was, okay, I want you to create your own internship. So we did it following the DAO module. Did a couple hours where I taught them about DAOs. I showed them examples. I said, here's some big ones. Here's what they do. Here's what a guild is. Here's what a bounty is. Here's how a token works. Here's all these things. Now I want you to go find a DAO that interests you, and I want you to jump into their Discord, and I want you to find work that needs to be done. I want you to find a specialty, and I want you to create your own internship, and I want you to see that it's possible. You don't have to wait for the email from the dean with the job board, to wait for the internship from Boeing to go get coffee if you're in the Northwest. Like, that's what you do. And like, you don't have to do that. You can go, you can build your own internship. You can build your own resume. You can do real life projects, and you can even get paid for them. And the things they came back with were just amazing. And they found DAOs I'd never heard of, and they were doing things I'd never heard of. And I was like, that's amazing. And every single one just came back, and they just had a bullet point plan for what they were going to jump in. So some were going to write, some were going to manage, some were going to trade, and of course the accountant gives me like, found some obscure DAO that needed accounting help and sends me this 7-paragraph thing. And I was like, God, that's amazing. Like that's way more value than you'll ever get by, by just, finding some local firm to intern with. It's just all so fascinating. And so I say that to bring it back to what we're doing in the DAO and the Certified Digital Asset Advisor accreditation. Our job is to educate people how to use this in the proper way. It's not just invest in this. It's, hey, here are the opportunities that are available. And for those of us with established businesses, it's here's what's available to your kids. Here's what's available to you. We have on both ends. All right. Your son's still in the basement. Hey, why don't you bring him in? We'll talk about this. Or on the other side, it's like, yeah, your dad retired from his sales job after 40 years and he's driving everybody insane and nobody can function now. Because we see that every month around here. And so now it's like, hey, well, what are you interested in? There's probably a DAO. There's probably a way to contribute. And to be honest, one of the weaknesses of DAOs right now is there's not a lot of managers. People don't have management experience who are in there. And it's easy to beg on managers until you see an organization try to run without somebody with management experience. And then you're like, man, we need a manager in here. So they need, people are going to need all types of skills from the real world. They're just going to have to transition a little bit or adapt to what's new. But anything's possible and it's not an age specific thing. It's really possible to find new purpose no matter what age you are.
Oh, I love that. And it's super important, right? And but I do think there's also just something so cool about, I mean, who would have thought that, like, I mean, I don't know if they were really teaching much about crypto in classes before, especially in terms of like financial planning and and DAOs. So that's so cool that you're doing that. I want to ask, like, is there anything that like stands out to you from your students when they're learning about it? Are they like, are they getting it right away, or are they like confused, or how has it been like just teaching this so far?
Oh, great question. It's so interesting. It's not enough time for them to get the technical details, like how blockchain works. DeFi, the finance kids get. I have some non-finance, so like, other business majors or people from different disciplines, who generally just pick something because they're not into finance in general. DeFi comes a little slower, but they get like, hey, this isn't bank, this is code saying you can get interest based on what somebody's willing to pay you. Like, most people get that concept and they're like, oh, that makes sense. So Bank of America doesn't put 2% in the middle of what's going on here. Like, yeah, see? And so they get that, but we really get traction when we go to NFTs.
Okay.
That's a world they understand. They understand collectibles, they understand culture, in a way that I don't in a lot of ways. And so, I learned quite a bit too, artists and people I'd never heard of. I'm just like, what is that? I had to go home and ask my kids, and I don't know, but good, and then, but that in the DAO section, to answer your question, the NFTs and the DAOs were the most interesting, and
All
so
right.
yeah, and then they got the DAOs. They got that, hey, I might not be, have a life sentence to 40 years at a desk here. There might be something else. So I'm excited to expand those and make them more fun and interesting in the future.
Oh, I know, right? Gosh, I mean, it's only going to be so exciting to see what the next gen does with all of this, and as this continues to kind of grow up, right? The DAOs and the Web3 and the decentralized finance world, yeah, grows up with them, right? And
Yep.
so it's just gonna be so cool to see them, take this on and over. And yeah, I mean, so I do also want to get into some like rapid fire questions around 3 crypto and blockchain topics that are super popular today, and honestly, like throughout the whole year, and I imagine still remain popular in 2022. Yeah. The first one is the metaverse and how crypto and blockchain play into the future of the metaverse. I feel like ever since Facebook changed their name to Meta, we can't get away from talking about this. So what does the crystal ball say on that?
It's hard to talk about the metaverse because nobody's been able to define it yet. Instead of the internet things, it's the world of things. It's the thing of things, right? It's things floating around there. Most people associate, of course, with Ready Player One, and I get it, right? That makes sense. We all think this world is coming and it's going to be out there. So I think there will be some amazing things that happen there. I think as far as digital ownership, meetups, organization, I think the metaverse will be great for something like DAOs or like NFTs for immersive experiences. My daughter's 14, and I'm talking to her a couple nights ago, before she's going to sleep and, asking her what's going on in her life and what she's worried about. And, you know, she's talking about how can she spend more time on social media less time on social media and her frustrations, and how she doesn't necessarily, want to be doing this all the time, but there's pressure to do it. And she gets it's not healthy. And these aren't lectures I've had to give her. Like, she
She
knows.
knows.
And so I'm not saying there won't be value, but this world where everything's meta and we're all dying to get in, maybe it's a very boomer take, but I don't see it. I don't see young people either after the initial fun wears off to want to spend all their time in VR goggles. Like, that doesn't seem like a thing that's going to happen to me. But again, happy to be proven wrong there, I suppose.
I mean, wow, awesome. Way to go for your daughter. That is awesome for her to just recognize that. And that's something I've noticed with, even like, I mean, I don't have any kids, but my younger cousins that are, teens and they're Gen Zers and they've grown up with this technology. And, especially a lot of them going through high school with the pandemic, right? And not getting to go to real life class and real life things or homecoming or all the things at prom, whatever the kids are doing these days in high school and all that. But like, to not have those real life experiences, it actually makes them crave it more, which is so funny because I was like the opposite,
Yeah.
right? Of like how, at least I'm a millennial. I identify as a zillennial, but technically a millennial. And but like you crave those outside experiences, but it's like opposite now because we used to be so excited for the online experience and we still are, but exactly, like, imagine being a kid and going and feeling that pressure from so early on. We know a world where that's not the case, so it's maybe almost like easier for us to tap into our memory and say like, I remember a time when there wasn't so much pressure, but like someone like your daughter doesn't. And so, yeah, that's actually really an interesting take. I will say I'm a big fan of my Oculus.
Yeah, are you?
I
Nice.
have a lot of fun there. But do I want to be there all the time? No, no. I do take the goggles off and appreciate real world. And even myself, I have to tell myself to stop with the social and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, um,
It's hard. It's hard, right? And that world will be very popular if it can provide for purpose or if it can distract you from a lack of purpose, right? It just, unfortunately, those are the options where it's going to be big. And I hope we get to the point where it can help you find purpose, amplify your purpose, spread your purpose, as opposed to being a way to check out from your lack of
yeah.
purpose, like most addictions end up being in a lot of ways.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we can only hope that we are able to actually leverage the technology that we have to fuel good behaviors and instead of bad ones. But
Yeah.
it's a tough thing. All right, the next topic is Ethereum. Is that your asset class of the year? Why or why not?
Okay, so Ether is my asset class of the century. Uh,
Ooh.
I'm not shy about it. I think I am all Ethereum network all the time, specifically the asset Ether. Now, that doesn't mean I'm an ETH maxi. It doesn't mean I don't think there's going to be other winners and there's going to be plenty to go around, because I do. But by any available metric, uh, Ethereum's the winner, hands down. So they don't have the market cap Bitcoin has, but they have 10 times the market cap of any other chain. And then if you look at volume, transactions, demand, block space usage, number of developers, number of real world applications, use cases, potential, like, it's not like they're barely ahead of anybody. Like, they are it, and there's no one else. So I know people are trying to talk about this whole cross chain world and interchain and multiple chains and these alt chains, and there will be lots of chains eventually. But to not start with, yes, but Ethereum is clearly the dominant factor and will be for the foreseeable future. Yeah, I'm not afraid to say it that boldly. That's where all the action is.
All right. All right. Ooh, I love it. I love the confidence there. So awesome. All right. Topic 3. Will NFTs maintain their hype and growth? I originally was going to say in 2022, but let's like expand that to like 5, 10 years out, right? Like, are NFTs going to still just be as like hype worthy? Will they normalize? What do you think?
Yeah, they the hype will continue, and NFTs are such a broad category that I think we stop hearing the term NFT as much and start seeing subcategories of NFTs within there. So technically, the stuff you own on games, play to earn games, those are NFTs. Collectibles you buy in OpenSea are NFTs. I saw an awesome NFT in your newsletter the other day. You have your own NFT, which is great. Went to try to buy those, but couldn't find them. But that, so it they're really going to split into categories, I think, and I don't know what they'll be called. So NFTs will be this broad category, and then we'll have all these subcategories. But it's like anything; they'll be used for niche things and not meant to have value, just meant to be cool. Then there'll be the ones that focus on scarcity, and those will be the ones with the real value. So to date myself again a little bit, collected baseball cards growing up, and in the '80s it was awesome. Late '80s, we get cards. We could go get, each player had like 4 brands. You'd go get like, the Fleer, Topps, Donruss, eventually Upper Deck card, and you'd have like the 4 cards they had, and sometimes there's a couple bonus ones. And then in 1990 came around, and the card companies were making so much money. Not only did they like print 10 times as many cards, then they introduced like 8 cards of each good player, and now you had to collect all these things, and there wasn't any scarcity because they just printed unlimited and they weren't worth anything, and they just devalued all of them. And for any Gen Xers that are watching or listening, they'll know I'm talking about 90s Donruss, and they'll appreciate that I threw that out there. But they ruined baseball cards because they eliminated the scarcity and they eliminated the cool factor. And so NFTs are going to go through a period like that as well, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that the elite ones with scarcity will continue to be just as big of a deal, but hey, here's another collectible, here's another Bored Ape. I don't know. I think we're about there personally.
Yeah. All right. I could agree with you. This is awesome. No, I can't wait to see how all of it shakes out. It is such a wild ride we're on, but I'm excited to be here. I'm thinking about changing my Twitter picture to my NFT now, and so
you have to.
We'll see. It's going to become official. When do I get laser eyes? I don't know. Someone's gotta do that for me. But anyway, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, for all of this insight. Such a cool episode. Really, my first truly diving into this space. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
I will ask you my final question, which is really just to share with us, Steve, what the F we can expect from you and PlannerDAO next.
Yeah, so for me, it is PlannerDAO. That's where I'm spending my time. And sometimes I consult with other businesses or founders or whatever, and what I try to teach them is leverage. Anytime you can leverage your time into something greater or leverage your decisions, that's where you need to spend it. And so for me, spending my time in the DAO, I think, is the best way to leverage what I believe in and what I want to accomplish into things that are much bigger. So the DAO has several things going in. It's just to continue to build. It's to provide more transparency. It's to become a bigger tent. It's to become the fiduciary standard for digital asset education, to make sure that we are always the most transparent, always the most fair, always the most honest, and we're out there. And then it's to solve some of these challenges, like providing pro bono financial work for people who need it. So you'll see a lot of things coming from PlannerDAO. We're moving at an absolutely reckless pace, which is, I think, the only way any of us would have it. And we're going to set records for failing fast, set my previous records, because I'm pretty capable in that regard. We're going to break those records by a long shot. But at the other end of it, we're going to hopefully lay the groundwork for how a professional industry can incorporate these tools and these tactics and these ideas to benefit everybody, and benefit everybody who wants to see a better future for their profession.
Well said. What great final thoughts. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. This is such a fun episode. I can't wait for everyone to listen in.
Thanks for your time today. It was awesome to be on here. I'm honored, and keep up the good work. We need more honest voices in fintech.
Thank you. I agree. And same with you. I really appreciate your honesty, your transparency, your authenticity, even something as much as just saying like, I'm not afraid to fail, or, a lot of the things that you said, or like creating new systems, just amazing work across the board. So we're doing the work, as we like to say, together. So that's awesome. It takes all of us on board. But thank you again, Steve, for joining us. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can find me on all your favorite podcast platforms, and I'll be sure to put all things about PlannerDAO and Steve in the show notes. Until next time, talk to you soon.